Hello and welcome. If you're ready to get a really clear, straightforward guide to the NEBOSH IG1, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're about to crack the code on the foundations of workplace health and safety, and we're going to do it together. Let's jump right in.
So, let's start with a big question, shall we? What does a world-class safety system really look like? You might think it's some super complicated, massive thing, but the truth is, the NEBOSH IG1 framework gives us a surprisingly simple and honestly a really powerful blueprint to follow. And that's what we're going to unpack today.
So, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the why, the reasons behind all this. Then we'll get into building the system itself. After that, we'll talk about managing risk, and finally, we'll cover how we check our work. It's a logical journey, I promise.
All right, first up, element 1. Before we can even think about the how of safety management, we have to get totally clear on the why. Why does this stuff matter so much? Because this, right here, this is the foundation for absolutely everything else we're going to talk about.
It really boils down to these 3 core pillars. First, there's the moral reason. It's just the right thing to do, isn't it? To make sure people go home safe and sound. Then there's the legal side. The law demands it, and there are serious penalties if you don't comply. And finally, the financial reason. Put simply, accidents cost a ton of money.
And speaking of the financial costs, that leads us to a really critical point. This quote just nails it. The biggest financial hits from an accident are usually the ones hiding just below the surface.
It's like an iceberg, right? The stuff you see, the insured costs like compensation claims, that's just the tiny tip. The real danger is the massive chunk of ice underwater. These are the uninsured costs. A damaged reputation, lost production, huge fines, low morale, the list goes on. And get this, studies show these hidden costs are often 8 to 36 times bigger than the insured ones. They can literally sink a company.
So, who's on the hook for all this? Well, pretty much everyone. Employers have the main duty to provide a safe place to work, but workers also have a duty to look after themselves and the people around them. And it's a shared responsibility between clients and contractors too. It really has to be a partnership.
Okay, let's roll into element 2. So we know why safety is important, but good intentions aren't enough, right? We need a proper system to turn those intentions into real, consistent action. And that's where a health and safety management system comes in.
So what on earth is a management system? Well, think of it like a recipe for safety or a blueprint for your entire organization. It's the framework that pulls together all your policies and procedures. It's not supposed to be some dusty binder on a shelf. It should be a living, breathing part of how you work.
Now, the engine that drives this whole system is something called the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. It's a really simple but incredibly powerful idea, and it's the core of big standards like ISO 45001. You plan what you're going to do, then you go out and do it. You come back and check if it's actually working, and then you act on what you've learned to make things even better. It's a cycle of constant improvement.
At the very heart of the system is the health and safety policy, and it's got to have these 3 parts. Just remember, the why, the who, and the how. The statement of intent is the why. That's the big promise from the top. The organization section is the who. It spells out who's responsible for what. And the arrangement section is the how, the nitty-gritty, practical steps you'll take.
Now we're getting to the fun part. Element 3, managing risk. This is where the rubber really meets the road. This is about taking our system and putting it into practice by understanding our people and our processes. And, building a positive safety culture where people genuinely look out for each other is just as vital as any rule book.
The core activity here is the risk assessment. Now, this isn't just about filling out forms. It's about thinking ahead. And let's be super clear on 2 words. A hazard is anything with the potential to cause harm, like a sharp knife. The risk is the chance that knife will actually cut someone and how bad that cut might be. See the difference?
And the process itself is a simple 5-step loop. 1. Find the hazards. 2. Figure out who could get hurt. 3. Evaluate the risk and decide what to do about it. 4. Write down what you found and, this is the most important part, actually do something about it. And 5. Review it. Keep it up to date because things are always changing. So, in that 3rd step, how do we decide on the best precautions? We don't just guess. We use a fantastic tool called the hierarchy of controls. It's basically a ranked list of solutions, from the absolute best and most effective at the top down to the least effective at the bottom.
The golden rule is you always start at the top. First, can you just get rid of the hazard completely?
That's elimination. If not, can you substitute it with something safer? If you can't do that, can you use an engineering control, like a guard on a machine? Only after you've tried those do you move down to administrative controls, like training and procedures, and as the absolute last line of defense, PPE, personal protective equipment. Why is PPE last? Because it relies on a person to use it perfectly every single time, and let's be honest, that's just not as reliable.
Now, for the really, really high-risk jobs, I'm talking about things like working in a confined space or doing hot work. A normal risk assessment just isn't enough. For those, you need a permit-to-work system. It's a formal, written checklist that makes sure every single safety measure is in place before that dangerous job begins. It's a critical part of creating a safe system of work, which also means having things like emergency plans and first aid all ready to go.
Okay, we're on the home stretch. Let's wrap it up with our final element, element 4. We've built our system, we're managing our risks, but how do we actually know if any of it is working? This is all about checking our work and learning as we go.
We do this in two main ways. You've got active monitoring, which is proactive. It's about looking forward, trying to spot problems with things like inspections before they hurt someone. Then you've got reactive monitoring. That's looking in the rearview mirror, measuring our failures by looking at accident data after something has already gone wrong. A really strong safety culture needs a healthy mix of both.
Now, a key part of active monitoring is the audit. And please, don't confuse an audit with a simple inspection. An inspection looks at the workplace. An audit is a much deeper dive. It's a systematic, critical look at your entire management system, from top to bottom, to see if it's really doing what it's supposed to do.
And look, when things do go wrong, and sometimes they do, the investigation is not about finding someone to blame. It's about learning. We have to dig deep to find the root causes, the real systemic reasons something happened, so we can make meaningful changes to stop it from ever happening again.
Phew! Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. So let's slow down for a second and boil it all down to the absolute must-know takeaways. Here is the whole NEBOSH IG1 framework in a nutshell.
Let's recap. Element 1 is our why. Safety is moral, legal, and financial. Element 2 is our system. That's our Plan, Do, Check, Act framework. Element 3 is all about the risk. We use risk assessment and the hierarchy of controls to manage it. And element 4 is the check. We monitor what we're doing and we learn from our mistakes to get better. Why, system, risk, check.
And that brings us to the end. I want to leave you with one final thought, a question to take with you. Now that you have this framework in your head, what is the one single thing you can do in your own workplace tomorrow to make it just a little bit safer?